Hello there! I'm Emily.
And I'm Kayla.
And we just want to talk movies. And today we are talking about Gladiator II.
And a little bit of Glicken, if you will.
Yes. And we are going to be discussing
the ancient world in film.
Yes.
Because it's one of my favorite things. And I took a whole class on it a couple semesters ago at college.
We have a scholarly expert on the topic.
Sort of. I'll explain specifically what I actually know about this once we get into it, which isn't much because I did take one class on it, but it's something that very much interests me, and which is why I flocked to the theater last weekend. No, the weekend before last weekend to see Gladiator 2. Correct? That's when we saw it.
I can't even remember anymore.
It's final season for me, and it's Christmas season for us all. So permit us to be dumb and tired.
Yes. First news is that we got a release date in the US for Daisy Ridley's next movie, Cleaner.
Jeez, she's booked and busy.
Oh yes, the queen is booked and busy, and this is the Die Hard-esque one where she is an ex-military person who is a window cleaner, and then the building gets taken over by like psychotic activists, and she has to defeat the bad guys. It's coming in February. Not the best sign, but you know, plenty of February movies have been perfectly entertaining and perfectly good. So I think it's going to be really good. It is directed by Martin Campbell, who has done like so many iconic action movies. Some of my favorite action movies. We have
examples.
My favorites would be Casino Royale and The Mask of Zorro.
Oh.
So I have very high hopes, and
both great.
Yes. Daisy said that action in this is like crazy, like especially for a female lead. Like you don't typically see a female lead get this down and dirty.
Okay.
Apparently. So I'm super excited. She looks amazing in the movie from the stills we've gotten. So I'm excited. Hopefully we'll get a trailer very, very soon, and I will be seated at the theater. But unfortunately, Kayla won't be with me.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna be in Wales, the land of the Welsh. Coming to a city near you if you're Welsh. Because I'm studying abroad next semester, and I'm leaving in January. I guess that's a news item, because we don't know how we're gonna record. So the break after this season might be a long one.
Or you might just get really funky audio.
Yeah,
from
probably,
one of us.
most likely that.
My last bit of news, another movie coming in February of next year is Hard Eyes, which is a new slasher comedy that people have been kind of like, could this be another Icon? I don't know. Not too much information about it, just that it's like kind of slasher rom-com.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, so basic premise, and it seems obviously like it's taking from My Bloody Valentine, which is a great movie. No word on if it's R or PG-13. It should be R. If it's PG-13, we might be in trouble. But
what you said? Oh, you said February.
Yeah, February. But that's because it's Valentine's theme.
Yes.
So I have high hopes. Horror has been just doing amazing as of late, and
a resurgence.
Yes, and that I think is mostly because people have gone back to basics, especially when it comes to slashers. Just keep it simple and keep it gory and keep it fun.
And I love a Valentine's Day horror movie. What's the one that I like? My Bloody Valentine?
Yes.
The Canada one?
Yes.
Oh, that one's great.
That's Canadian slashers in the 80s were something else. Yeah, that's a really, really good movie. So hopefully it takes a few notes from that, but also is its own thing.
Wow.
It has Olivia Holt. It has, what's his name? Devon Sawa. That guy who's in the new Scream movies who I don't really mind. Hopefully this is better. And it also has Jordana Brewster, who I like. So
what's she in?
Fast and Furious and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre prequel.
Oh.
Back in the day.
Lovely.
So that's interesting. I'm definitely intrigued by this.
I'm loading up my news right now. Folks.
Oh, do I have to step out? I don't want to hear.
Listen. Okay, I'll go with the non-Stranger Things news first, because this will be quicker. This is Interview with a Vampire news.
Oh.
They got nominated for 2 Critics' Choice Awards, which I'm very excited about. They got nominated for Best TV Show, and Sam Reed, who plays Lestat, got nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
Oh.
I'll be rooting for him, because he's amazing. But I don't think that they're going to win anything. Because it is a popularity contest, and they barely scraped into the nominations. Mm-hmm. They had a lot more up for consideration that just they didn't do. So we'll see. I will be watching with wide and excited eyes.
Wide and excited eyes.
Anyway, now for the doozy, folks.
Okay. Do I leave?
Yeah, or you can plug your ears. Okay, folks, let me give a word of warning before I jump into this news. We have unfortunately been bamboozled by spoilers this week, or I don't know, maybe last week. I can't remember when this was released. The paparazzi has snuck in to the set of Stranger Things 5, and they have captured photos that show some things. First of all, it's been revealed that they're filming the last episode, and they're filming a graduation scene that takes place in 1989, which is a big jump. It's a 2-year time jump from when the bulk of season 5 will most likely be taking place. The pictures that they've got are of Mike Wheeler and Hopper, and Hopper's back in his sheriff's suit, and he's sitting with Mike on a bench, and they both look very upset. So many people have jumped to the conclusion that 11 is dead. And I'm going to be very mad if that's true. And I understand that is very much jumping to conclusions. But I don't know. The vibes I get from the picture are unfortunately that. Anyway, that's the news we got. And I'm going to do the sting. And when it's done, you can unplug your ears if you did not want to hear spoilers. Okay, come back to your microphone. Emily has left the room because she did not want to hear the spoilers.
Don't want spoilers.
They're probably not as dramatic as I and the rest of the fandom are making them out to be. But still, I know a lot of people are like, why would I want to know stuff like that before I go into the show? So, unplug your ears now. I'm no longer speaking of it.
We will be talking about spoilers for Gladiator II, though.
And Wicked. But everyone knows the story of Wicked.
Except me.
You don't.
I don't.
Emily doesn't know. I'm going to have to shut up.
I don't know anything
when
about the story of Wicked.
When it comes to Wicked Part 2, I'm going to have to shut up.
That's part of why I liked it so much and why I'm so excited for the second one, because I don't know where it's gonna go. So I'm genuinely curious.
I don't know much about it. I just know the basic plot points, because I haven't watched a recording of the play because I wanted to actually see it live, but it's so expensive to go see things live in theater, which sucks. Anyway, we'll get into that later. For now, we're going to talk about Gladiator II. I forgot how the music goes. It's really good, though.
So, Gladiator 2. Should we start, as we always do, with what we liked?
Yes. What I liked was the music, the sets, the vibes, the scale. It was your classic ancient world, big scale spectacle film. I think that the action scenes and the gore were, as everyone has said, they've taken a step up from the first one. They had to, because are you not entertained? And I thought most of the performances were really good. The 2 Emperor boys were something. And Pedro, what a man, and what an unfortunate. Okay, we're gonna get into spoilers already. What an unfortunate end he met. I thought Paul Mescal did a good job. I know I'm already getting into dislikes, but I wish that he had more to do. I feel like as the main character, he was kind of one of the least interesting, but that's not to bash his performance. I think he did really good. And I think Denzel Washington was probably the standout, as also everyone's been saying. His character was just the most interesting, and his performance was so diabolical. And I liked it a lot. So yeah. That's my overall goodness.
Yeah, I have a lot of the same positives, I think. I remember when I watched the first one, I watched it like 2 or 3 times. I can never remember a single thing that happens in it. I'm trying to think of a scene, and I'm like, did I watch it? But I do remember being surprised that it wasn't as brutal as I thought it was going to be. This one is what I thought would be in the first one. I'm like, okay, that's the kind of brutality and like on-screen gore and stuff that I was expecting from the first one. And yeah, the scale, the costumes,
the costumes were really good.
I love all of that. I think that the performances, if you didn't have as good actors and performances, this movie would not be as good.
Yeah, it would have low-key sucked.
Yeah. Pedro is just Pedro. I love Pedro so much.
Yes.
I'm pissed watching him in anything that isn't The Mandalorian because he seems to have a Sean Bean curse. Where it's just like, well, Pedro's in it. I guess we know what's going to happen to him.
Yeah, his character's just going to be, like, not only murdered, but just disrespected.
Yes. Thankfully it wasn't as much of a desecration as Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I knew it was gonna happen again just because he was in it. I was like,
I kind of felt bad. He was kind of like Lucilla's replacement for Maximus, and then he just gets thrown to the dogs, basically.
Yeah. And I feel like everything that was happening with him was so interesting. And I was like, ooh, this is like the plot right here.
But again, it was kind of too similar to Maximus, where like if he had been the main character, it would have been just a repeat. Which it already kind of is with the son being the main character.
They might as well have called this Son of Gladiator, honestly.
Yeah. Which, like, interesting discourse. I've heard some people are mad that they made him his son, but I feel like it was kind of hinted at, like, pretty heavily in the first one. Whereas, like, I wasn't completely sure that he was, but when this movie came out and it was revealed, I was like, oh, that makes sense. It wasn't like it felt like they were trying to make a plot by making him his son.
And I will give I'm not like a huge Gladiator expert or fan really, but I think just for me the better way to go with this story was to have his son needs to be in it because his story at the end of the first one's like, well,
yeah, it's kind of left open.
Yeah, what happens to him? Obviously he has to come back at some point. So I think he should have been, I don't think they should have just had him go through the exact same thing that his dad went through, because like it's meant to be like as gut-wrenching and like, oh god, but it's not. It's like, okay, yeah,
I've
here we
seen
go.
it before.
He should have been more in the political side. He should have been,
I think that would have been interesting.
and then we get that different perspective. And then on the flip side, to have the Gladiator storyline, it should have been Pedro. We start him like right off the bat with him trying to usurp the emperors. He gets caught, and then he gets put into the Gladiator.
Yeah.
So that is our Gladiator story. And then with the son, we get the political side.
And there could have even been conflict between him and his mom, because his mom is obviously on Pedro's side, but maybe since he grew up in royalty, he might have been more leaning towards the emperor side.
So then he isn't just the exact same thing as the main character in the first one. He has more of maybe like a darker edge to him.
When you compare that, what they do with him is they put him, he like had escaped to Africa, somewhere in Africa, it seemed like. And then he's like a general there, and then his wife dies at the beginning. But it's like, it's way less gut-wrenching than what happens in Gladiator, so that just makes it automatically not as powerful of a story like the rest of the way through.
Yeah. It's
So
clearly just there to be like, you might as well just written in, oh, emotional point
exactly.
of story.
And then she
Okay.
like they even like know that it's not as gut-wrenching because they come back to Russell Crowe's family many times. They cut back to him thinking about them and wanting to be with them. But they don't really go back to his wife in this new one. They kind of just drop her.
Weird dream sequence stuff.
Yeah, but then only like right after she dies, and then a little bit at the very end. And when that happened, I was like, okay, you're just like forcing this.
Yeah. So I think if they had switched it like that,
It would have been a lot more interesting.
because everything, like with Denzel's character, which completely took me by surprise.
Yeah.
That may be because I'm dumb, or I didn't watch any trailers or anything.
They do a good job of like, because he's in that position where technically he is kind of a slave to the government, but he also has a lot of power. So with characters like that and the guy from Spartacus, you don't really know what they're gonna do, and I think they really leaned into that with Denzel, and of course he's a great actor, so you really did not know what he was gonna do from scene to scene, and it was amazing when it all came together.
And he's so good at playing like charismatic, so you're like, okay,
I wanna like
he's
him.
a good guy, but then also he's really good at playing like unhinged.
Yeah.
So you're kind of unsure what to think. But I so thought, because the rest of the movie is going through the basic beat for beat, here's the classic tale of
Yeah,
the
you
hero.
think he's gonna be on.
Yeah, you think,
side.
okay, and here's the wise person who's gonna guide him, and blah, blah,
like
blah.
in the first one.
Yeah, and it did take like a really long time for me. Like, as soon as he starts to betray Pedro, I'm like, okay, this is all, it's probably just part of like a larger thing. He's really on their side, but he needs to do this. But then it's
Exactly.
like, no, it's not happening. I'm like,
Yep, he just wants all the power.
oh, he's actually unhinged. Okay. I really enjoyed that. And it made for a good surprise villain, because
Yeah, that's what really made the movie interesting. If that plot line hadn't been through it, I would have just been kind of bored, because I would have been like, this is the same movie I've already watched.
Yeah.
Done slightly not as good.
Yes. But I loved that, and I'm so upset that, like, again, Pedro's death obviously is supposed to be like the point of that's what's gonna drive the rest of the story, but the main guy never even really cared about Pedro.
No,
so
that's the other thing, like, his motivations were kind of like muddled to me.
Yes.
Because he wants revenge on Pedro, like, because he's the guy who ordered the kill on his wife. So, and it's this complicated thing. I thought it would turn into this, like, such an emotionally gut-wrenching story, because Lucilla loves Pedro, and she also
so do
loves her
we.
son, and we love Pedro, and we know that he is not on the side of the Empire. Oh, but and then he wants revenge, and then it just kind of gets dropped, because what does he say? Pedro says something like, "I love your mom," or
he's like, I loved your mom and your dad.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Why can't we get more? Okay, they completely.
Also, typical man to respect his dad, who was never in his life, more than his mom, who like risked so much to save him.
We can get into like the gender politics of everything too, because they completely brush aside any like gay connotation.
Yeah. Well, that's like all throughout, like Spartacus. That's a big discussion. A big complaint I have with Spartacus.
But you'd think in this day and age, that would be like, everyone knows it now.
Yeah.
And it's...
Well, Denzel said that he had a gay kiss, probably with that guy whose house that he basically overtook, and then he said that they cut it out of the movie, and he was kind of mad about it.
Come on. We all know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that anyway. Aside
They were all
that,
bisexual, basically.
yes. But it was so bizarre to me, and that's why I never connected with the main guy, because I just didn't. He had no personality, first of all, other than I am main character.
Yeah.
This is what I do now.
Revenge, but not in a as compelling way as Maximus.
Yeah. So I was just kind of like, way more interested in everyone else because I felt they at least had like some flair, some personality to them.
And he was almost kind of a Mary Sue.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know.
Gary Stu.
Yeah, because he's like so good at fighting, but
he like never gets, the most he gets is like a little cut.
You could say no, you can't say the same thing about Maximus, because the first scene that you see of him is him being like a really good general who leads his troops to victory. And the first scene that you see of what's his name? Lucius? It's something like that. The first scene you see of Paul Mescal is him leading his troops to defeat.
Yes. Which, again, that would have been, okay, here's a guy who's, like, absolute trash at it.
That's another thing. Like, it would make more sense to me if he completely sucked.
Yeah. And he's just, like, Superman. Hardly ever gets hurt. He knows exactly. Another thing, they seem to build up this thing where he's gathering all the gladiators to stand behind him and rebel.
Yeah.
We never got really scenes where that was built up well.
Exactly. And even my point was at the very end, they have this really cool scene and really cool shots of the two sides of the battles, the two sides of the battle coming together to get ready to fight. Basically, the Roman troops against specifically Pedro's troops, and then at the end they all just decide to not fight and be on Paul Mescal's side, and I'm like, but you didn't really show, like, they were the troops of the Empire, and this one dude convinces all of them to turn against the Empire. Like, you have to show a little bit more of that progression for me to be convinced that would happen.
All they showed was the crowd, obviously, who all loved Pedro and were pissed when he was killed.
Yes.
So and that made sense.
But then the troops were still like, let's threaten to kill them. Because, and you didn't really show them maybe having reservations about that at all. Which, even if they showed like one scene where the guy was like, what are we doing?
Yeah, or he like looks when Pedro dies and is like, even that would have just been like, okay, obviously the troops also are like, whoa, we weren't thinking that was gonna happen.
But they didn't do any of that, so it felt less like, I don't know, it felt Mary Sue to me.
And he's all like, where were the scenes with him? We get scenes with him connecting with like this healer guy who like cleans his wounds after battle.
Oh yeah.
We don't get anything with him connecting with the other gladiators and give us a reason why they would all want to follow him, other than all of a sudden he's in like the rhinoceros scene. He's like telling everyone what to do. I'm like, why would they? There's one guy who doesn't listen, but all the other ones are like, oh yeah, okay. I'm like, wait.
Probably because he's the best. He's like the best at fighting. I don't know.
I guess that kind of went over my head.
And also, I don't know if this is true, but a good amount of the gladiators who were with him might have been from the prisoners that were taken, so that could have been part of it.
Okay.
But I don't know, because they were kind of like just cycled through, and Denzel was like, give me that one, so I don't know how many there would be.
And like, we didn't get any scenes. I needed more of him connecting with them on a personal level.
Agreed.
Because I'm like, okay, here's all these random people, I guess, who like him.
Yeah.
Even if they were the people from wherever they got captured before. Like, they just needed more human-to-human scenes instead of him just...
Yeah, he's no Katniss.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of scenes with him and his mom, which don't do much for me. So I'm like, this kind of went nowhere.
Yeah, like, we were coming back to what we were saying. He, like, just changes his mind really quick. He's like, he hates his mom.
Then he loves his mom.
And then he has one conversation with Pedro, and then he loves his mom again. And I'm like, but you hated Pedro even more than you hated your mom.
And it's so rushed.
It's sexist. He's sexist.
Because obviously, story-wise, that's the catalyst for him being able to start the rebellion. Mm-hmm. But he's ready to murder Pedro.
Yeah.
Like, seconds away, and then Pedro says, like, one thing, and then gets killed. And then the guy's like, this is how you treat...
Yeah.
I'm like, why do you care, though? You would not care this much.
They really go into that, too. I think it's Denzel who says, like, let your anger, like, drive you forward. And I'm like, I wish that they could have just leaned into that and made him just this rageful dude who, like, doesn't see the bigger picture. He just sees the revenge that he needs to get.
Just go full Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, they were definitely calling upon Revenge of the Sith in this movie.
It felt like Revenge of the Sith in Roman times.
I was like, want to watch Revenge of the Sith really bad. I forgot to mention, Star Wars is also basically an ancient world film.
Yeah.
Like, very much. And they do the politics side of it really well in Revenge of the Sith specifically, but really the whole of the prequel trilogy because of all the build-up that they have to do.
Yes. And just showing, like, the slow political discourse, especially throughout the Clone Wars, the show.
Yes.
That really goes into it. And
the prequels are amazing.
Yeah, prequel era is top tier.
It might be my favorite.
I think it's my favorite, honestly. But yeah, everything with Pedro and the wife, what's her name?
Lucilla.
Lucilla.
Yeah.
I'm sexist.
Well, no, the movie...
Pedro and Pedro's wife. It all felt like those deleted scenes from Revenge of the Sith with Padme and Bail Organa, and they're starting the roots of the
first
rebellion.
one felt like that too, because I feel like they give Lucilla more to do in the first one as well, because she basically starts it all, and she has to deal with freaking Joaquin Phoenix. We didn't have a Joaquin in this, which...
No, we had
but we did have.
We had two
brothers.
guys who were basically Kayla and I on screen.
They were hilarious. Just two spoiled brat brothers who are in charge of running an entire empire,
which is funny.
We feed them war.
And there's a monkey in a dress for some reason.
That was crazy at the end. So. I guess one of the brothers has syphilis and his brain is going crazy and he just loves his monkey. And, like, I kind of relate.
Yeah, I feel that.
He did. Anyway.
What happened to that monkey?
I don't know. I think Denzel kind of usurped the monkey as well as the throne.
Oh, well, I hope that she's living her best life wherever she is.
Yes, in her little dress.
Anywho.
I never thought I'd see Eddie's head get carried away. Eddie from Stranger Things.
Oh, yeah. He was in it. I didn't even recognize him, to be honest. I keep forgetting, like, throughout the trailers and everything, obviously I'd see him, but I wouldn't know it was him.
Yeah.
And then in the cast, I'd always see him like, oh, he's in it. I wonder who he is. And then actually watching the movie even, I was like, oh, he's the Emperor guy. He doesn't even look the same.
Yeah, he looks way different when he's Eddie because of the hair, so it is kind of hard to...
But even, like, the makeup they had on him, he played it well. And honestly...
Yeah, I mean, they were fun. I mean, it shows how power is just handed to sometimes real idiots.
Which is why...
I think it did echo some of today.
Well... which is funny, because in that way, you're kind of on Denzel's side. You're like,
yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Get these two out of here.
That's the point, it's interesting.
And you're like, I would trust Denzel more than these guys, because he does seem like he could lead better, but obviously he's, like, willing to cut down literally anyone. But you can also see, again, it's so much like Star Wars, because he builds up his reputation of being a likable, trusting guy.
Then just...
everyone can get behind in those, like, while he's just small fish, but then he can slowly be like, well, I'll volunteer myself if you all, and they're like, oh yeah,
Yep.
And I'm like, it's so much like Palpatine.
It's Palpatine, yeah, it's Palpatine coded.
Yeah, that was great. I guess that's a good segue into ancient world films in general.
Well, this film had all the hallmarks of an ancient world film. For one, it takes place in the ancient world. What else do we want? We also have the cast of thousands, as my professor always put it, which is the big spectacle scenes where you'd have battles and just a bunch of people. In this case, you'd also have the crowds for the gladiatorial games. Then you have I can't remember what my professor called this, but just like the ooh-ah moment where they go into Rome and like they really like linger on these shots of the Colosseum, or maybe the troops marching into town, the Victory Arch. We had a good shot of the Victory Arch in this one. You see them in Paris today and in the United States.
The United States.
What do you call that area? New England. I'm so dumb.
Listen, we studied film, not geography.
Yeah, I don't know where I am. Anyway, so I'll tell you the types of movies we watched in my class were mostly adaptations of the Iliad or the Trojan War. So a lot of like Helen of Troy stuff. And then a lot of adaptations of the Spartacus story, who Spartacus is a real historical figure, but we don't know much about him because the only historical documents that we have are from the people who would have been not on his side in his rebellion. But yeah, he was basically a slave. Yeah, I think he was a gladiator, and he basically led a whole slave revolt that ended in his death. And it kind of failed, but he did a lot. He definitely scared the people, and so that's why we have films like Spartacus, Gladiator, The Hunger Games. It's all based off that same story. My favorite ancient world film is, well, it's Hunger Games, but it's also Spartacus. But Spartacus has problems for me because it was made in the 60s, so obviously it's gonna have problems. Almost all these films we watched in my class had a scene where a man chokes a woman.
And not in the good...
Not in a good way. Not in a consensual way.
Yeah. There were evil gays.
Yes. Evil gay in Spartacus is... What is his name? Crassus. I was like, I know it starts with a C. So, we have Crassus as the big villain. Another excellent performance by Laurence Olivier.
I love Laurence Olivier.
He's excellent. But there's actually a deleted scene. He basically takes Jamie Lee Curtis's dad as prisoner and wants to... What is his name?
Tony Curtis?
Tony Curtis. I was like, I can't just say that. His name is Antoninus. I remember that name. But he takes him as prisoner basically as like his sexual slave, and he's like,
literally says body slave, doesn't he?
Yeah, something like that. And they're like in the bath because the Roman Senate, the Roman elite, they love their baths. And he's just talking about, some people like fruits and some people like meats. He says something different. But he's like, I like a little bit of both. So he's obviously very much hinting at the fact that he's bisexual. But they completely cut out that scene because, ew, gay. And also, either way, like, they only made him gay because he's a villain, in my opinion. Because he's kind of supposed to be the representation of everything wrong with the Roman Empire, which is like their excess, their overconsumption, their greediness, and I feel like
and they're gay.
That's a big stereotype of people who are bisexual, and it continues to this day. So
you can't even be attracted to just one gender.
It's a stereotype. It's crazy. So like when we were watching that in my film class, I was like, this is rough. But either way, he was an excellent evil gay. I have to say that. He's an excellent villain. And
he's great in Wuthering Heights.
Does he play, what's his face?
Heathcliff.
I'm sure he's great in that.
He's great.
The whole story is just basically about Spartacus. He's been basically a slave his whole life. And then he like slowly, as he gains this group of followers who want to follow him, he like gains a family, and then he even gains a real life family because he has a wife and a baby. And it's so freaking sad at the end when he dies, and it's so empowering when everyone they basically lose their fight against the Roman Empire, and he's like, Crassus is like, who is Spartacus? Because he's never seen Spartacus, but he's certainly heard the name. And everyone stands up and says, I'm Spartacus. And it's just such a great moment. And it's
Radio Rebel copied it.
So many movies copied it. Radio Rebel is included. And that's the first time that I saw something like that. So when I see that, I was like, oh, Radio Rebel?
It's like Radio Rebel.
I know, that's kind of sad.
I'm Radio Rebel.
And then at the end, when Spartacus is crucified, and then his wife sees him and says, your son will carry on this legacy for you. And it's so sad. It's the most gut-wrenching things. And it's such a powerful movie. Anyway, everyone should watch Spartacus. It's excellent.
Excellent.
The other side, like I said, was the Trojan War films, which were, again, huge spectacle films. They were really big. All of these movies, like, first were made as silent films. Like, there's a silent film, Spartacus. There's a silent film of, I can't remember what it's called. It's a silent film version of the Trojan War and Helen of Troy and all that. And then they get their big boom in, like, the 50s and 60s because for some reason, we all loved those big spectacle films. Because I guess the budget and the effects were there enough.
Yeah, you got, like, color film being
Technicolor.
the norm now.
Mm-hmm. I would say my favorite adaptation, I don't like Troy.
No? I haven't seen it.
No, because I don't like Brad Pitt. But also...
You're like Orlando Bloom.
Orlando Bloom is good, but I don't like Brad Pitt, and I don't like the weird romance that they give Brad Pitt and Braceris. I can't remember what her name is. It's like very weird and abusive, and it's supposed to be framed as romantic. Anyway, my favorite, I think, is the 1956 Helen of Troy. I feel like the way that each of these films frames Helen specifically, if you don't know the Trojan War, basically it's a myth that was originally written by Homer in, like, so long ago. One of the first pieces of literature that we have. And Paris, who is a part of the Trojan side, royalty, he goes to, where are they? Greece in Sparta. And he basically steals Menelaus' wife. That's how it's pretty
Mr.
much.
Steal your woman.
Yeah, he's, like, influenced by Aphrodite to do it. It's like this. There's a lot more mythology in the Iliad than there is in any of the movies, because I think, I don't know, they don't want to really show that part of it. One, to make it less cheesy, I guess, and two, because we don't believe in those myths anymore, I guess. I don't know. And so he steals Helen, and then he causes basically a huge war. That's why they call Helen of Troy the face that launched 1,000 ships. And a lot of stories interpret Helen as a character differently. They interpret her as either, like, this evil woman who was like, I'm going to cheat on my husband and I don't care the consequences, even as I see all of these people dying around me. Troy literally falls at the end, like, everyone dies. And she doesn't care, obviously, because she stays with Paris. Or they frame her as, like, this woman who's, like, abused by Menelaus in Sparta, and then Paris kind of saves her.
That's my favorite story.
I feel like there should be a middle ground, because, yes, it is kind of selfish of her to stay with Paris, but also maybe there were reasons. And, you know, I support women's rights, and I support women's rights.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
I feel like, they both kind of either devalue her agency or just, I don't know, just turn her into a villain when clearly that is not the case.
I feel like the best would be if we get a movie about her where it's like, yeah, her, because of the times, obviously she is being abused and oppressed where she is, and then Paris is like, want to get away, and she's like, you know what? Screw it. Yeah, I don't care, because this is my freedom. And then the war starts, and she's kind of like, oh, this isn't good, but at the same time, like, kind of screw these people because they didn't come rescue me when I was in trouble, so why should I care what happens to them? Which is also, like, a little bit of villain, but
yeah, and it's not Troy's fault either.
Yeah, we kind of stand behind at the same time.
Well, that is almost what they do in the 1956 version. I feel like I like the way they characterize her the best in the 1956 version. Of course, in the 20s version, she's completely evil. Not surprising there. There's one with Hedy Lamarr, which you did watch with me.
Is that the anthology?
Yeah, where she was kind of more villainous, which but it did show, but it did sympathize with her.
She was like a human.
Yeah, because Menelaus isn't a great guy in that one. And And then in the 1956 version, they kind of make Paris into like a pretty boy. We talked about that a lot in my class. Where like he's very conventionally attractive, especially in the 1956 version,
and especially when he's Orlando Bloom.
Well, yes, they continue that trend. I mean, in all of them, he's supposed to be like a pretty boy, but like they really lean into that in the 1956 version, and they also make him sort of like your typical hero character, whereas the other ones he is kind of like a little bit slimy because he's stealing a wife. And Helen is kind of, she doesn't want to leave with him. Menelaus is still horrible to her. Of course we gotta get that choking scene.
I gotta get at least one of those in there.
But she doesn't want to leave with him. I think she only leaves with him because the guards from her palace are coming after them and she's in danger, so she kind of has to like jump into a boat with Paris and leave. And then she tries to go back a bunch once the war has started, but something happens where like they stop her from coming back, and you're supposed to be fully on her side by the end of it. And I don't know, I liked that version the best. I also feel like the production was really good in that one. And then yeah, Troy just focuses on Brad Pitt too much, so Helen's not really as much of a character. But I mean, they kind of go the same way, but she also like she kind of just is there a lot in the 2004 one. So I don't know. I just don't love the way that the women are portrayed in the 2004 one.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. The time.
It was 2004. Yeah, none of these are necessarily great depictions
women's
of
films.
Women.
You know what? That's a new era we need. Ancient, like, Rome and Greece and all that. That are women's films. A lot
of books are doing that these days.
There's
a bunch of like feminist retellings of ancient Greek. The book Circe, which I read, great book. I feel like there should be more. There should be more of them.
Yes.
Anyway,
these aren't, and like Paris and Helen of Troy weren't real people,
and Achilles wasn't real.
Yeah,
but there is some archaeological evidence that like Troy did fall, so it could have been like heavily based on real events. I don't know. We don't really know because all we really have is the Iliad.
But that's why it's not like as... I feel like when it's real people, it's concerning when there's just wildly different interpretations. Like, okay. Well, but when it's a myth, you can kind of just do whatever you want with it.
That's another reason why I found Spartacus the most impactful and the Hunger Games, because they were a little bit more based in reality, and also you don't follow a bunch of royals, so you feel more like, oh, this is more relatable and more real. Like, it's also very much happening in real time. But yes, I loved all the films that we watched. I thought it was very interesting, especially to see the same... Like, basically every film ever, or every story ever, is fan fiction of the Iliad. Like, you could find a way to connect it back.
Yep.
Fan fiction of any ancient Greece, even historical text, mythology, hero story, legend, any of that. They're all, like, that's where we get all of our stories. The hero's journey,
yeah.
It was originated in ancient Greece. So yeah, it's really interesting, especially to watch straight up adaptations throughout the decades to see, I don't know, how we reinterpret it as time goes on.
At least in American and European films. I don't know much about, like, Asian films. I know that a lot of people who like anime got into it because it was so refreshing to get away from the hero's journey.
Yeah.
So apparently
So I should say Western media.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know much. I mean, I watch horror movies every now and then that are from the Middle East every now and then, and to me they feel the same. It's good against evil.
Yeah, humans be humans.
Yeah. But I guess I haven't had that scope of Eastern films, but apparently they are very different, which makes sense because they have their own myths and legends that the stories came from. But I think at the end of the day, it's
the end of the day, Western media has taken over.
Yeah, that too.
History is a complicated subject.
Yes. But I think at the end of the day, there's always something we're scared of. It's usually pretty similar when you look at it, and we want to see good overcome
evil.
Yes.
And the hero prevail.
Yes.
But who that hero is, many times, is not the same, depending on who you ask.
Yes.
Especially across time. Anyway. So I love ancient world films. Again, in more modern times, I feel like we've strayed away from setting ancient world films. In the ancient world, we've had Hunger Games, Star Wars, and probably many more that I'm not thinking of. But you can literally find it in anything.
Like Divergent, Maze Runner.
I don't know.
Well, just because
Maze Runner, maybe.
they came from the Hunger Games, kind of. So
but anyway,
kind of follow it.
That's another thing that you can talk about of how we're more and more afraid of the future. Mm-hmm. I think that's an interesting thing with dystopia. And also the thing about dystopia is it's not necessarily about the future. It's about the present. And in the case of the Hunger Games, it's about the past because it's very much based in the Roman Empire. Bred in circuses, Panem. Hello, they literally used the motto of the Roman Empire for the name of the world that the Hunger Games takes place in.
Yep.
And it continues on to this day. So henceforth, ancient world films are a great mirror of our society, and they will always be around, even if they've definitely died out in terms of setting a movie in the Roman Empire.
Yeah. Until we get to Gladiator II.
Yes, which I have a feeling this will not cause a resurgence.
No, I think...
Although Megalopolis was also made this year, which is interesting.
We could get into that, too.
Again, I don't think they will cause a resurgence.
See, now that's a great example of how you don't do it.
I'd love to see a movie that, like... Well, I forgot to mention Trojan Women. That is also one of my favorite ancient world films. It's literally pretty much word for word the play Trojan Women by Euripides, which was written way back in the ancient times. That's basically what happens to the women of Troy after it falls. And probably my favorite... Euripides is probably my favorite writer from ancient times. Literally, all of his plays are so good. And I feel like he was most likely sexist, but the way that he writes women, it like is accidentally very feminist because he doesn't write them as perfect people, and they're very complex. If you read, so I'm gonna pronounce it Medea, but I know that it's not pronounced that way.
It's not Medea Halloween.
I think it's Medea. Medea. That's how you pronounce it. He also wrote that. That's about a woman who, the way that I interpret it, and many people interpret it today, is in such an abusive relationship that she kills her children to get out of it and to get them out of it. And it's such a good story. And she's probably one of my favorite characters in mythology as a whole. But yeah, and he also wrote Trojan Women, which follows all them. Cassandra is also one of my favorite characters. She is a woman who literally predicts the fall of Troy, but no one believes her. I wrote a whole essay about her in one of my classes. I love her so much. And so he writes about her. He writes about just the awful things that are going to be done to them and how they deal with that. And I think how they deal with it and how they're very different people. Like the Queen of Troy is different from Hector's wife, is different from Cassandra. The ways that they deal with it are really interesting, and it shows like multitude in women. And I don't know if he meant to do that, but he did.
We love accidental allies.
And yeah, it's a lot more feminist than like a lot of the way that women are written today. So I would very much recommend the movie The Trojan Women from, I think it was 1971. It has Katharine Hepburn in it, and she's really good. Basically word for word adaptation of the play. So it's very much like if you need something that has multiple sets and like spectacle, it's not one of those. It's basically just them talking the whole time. And yeah, those are great ones.
We got some recs if you haven't seen them.
And we should move on before I start spiraling into more that I've forgotten about.
Gladiator II, I think it was entertaining. Mm-hmm. A fun theater
not entertained?
Yes. I was. My left eardrum did get messed up. And I'm a little concerned to this day, but...
It was very loud. We were right by the speaker.
Yes.
I would give it like a 7 out, maybe a 6.5.
Yeah. I think I'd probably do 6.
Okay.
6 out of 10. It's so I usually do 5 stars, so it's so hard to do 10.
So it would be like a 3 out of 5.
Yeah, maybe like 2 3/4.
Okay.
Depending on the day.
All right. Well,
So, what else have we been watching?
Wicked.
Wicked.
Okay. Do you know what blew Gladiator 2 out of the park? Wicked. Glue Gladiator 2 out of the park.
I was pleasantly surprised with Wicked.
I had such a ball, an absolute ball. We
love
need
musicals.
Another thing that needs to come back is movie musicals, and I feel like they have, but not in a good way. In the past couple of years, we had Mean Girls, we had
Cats.
Ooh, we had Cats.
Sorry.
right before COVID, we had Cats.
Might have caused COVID.
That's the theory, that Cats caused the tragedy that has been the past like 4 or 5 years.
Possibly.
What's the other movie musical? Oh, Joker.
Oh,
Like,
Jesus.
Not great movie musicals. I will defend Joker, but like I wouldn't say that it touches Wicked in any sense as far as a movie musical goes.
No.
This one felt like it was made by people who love musicals. They weren't ashamed to call it a musical, first of all, like the other two were. And
Advertise it as such.
yeah, and like,
It'd be pretty hard not to be fair.
well, yeah, it's Wicked. But you could feel all the every ounce of love that was put into this. And each of the actors loved it. Each of the director, down to the set design, the costume design, everyone who was in this loves Wicked and wanted it to be perfect. And you could feel that radiating through the screen. And it was excellent. And I think the leads, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, were so good. So good.
I was very surprised.
As good as this pie. So good.
I wasn't sure about Ariana Grande. I'm not a huge fan of her as of late.
I was excited to see her because I think she's an amazing vocalist, but
Yeah.
I don't think that she uses her ability well in her pop music because it's all like, and I can't really listen to her music because of that. But when I heard she was going to be in a musical, I was like, okay, this is what I love from her. And so I was very excited to see it. And I think she did a great job.
She did. She was really good.
And she was really funny.
Yeah.
And Cynthia Erivo was
Oh, yeah,
the star,
Yeah.
like, vocal-wise.
Very,
She
very
did
good.
so good.
The costumes, I have to say, were the star of the show for me. Literally every single outfit everyone wore, I was like, so how could I get an outfit like that?
Yeah.
It makes me, and that's another thing that I'm excited for part 2. I'm like, I can't wait to see more dresses and sparkles.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, you will. I've already seen the blue dress that Glinda wears.
Oh, I'm super excited.
All the pink.
That was,
The costumes were really good. Like, each and every, yeah.
and I love, this started with Barbie, and I'm glad it's staying, like, us girlies. We can
Yeah.
be strong and independent, and we can also love pink and sparkles and
And-
beautiful things.
And we can dominate the box office.
Yes.
Like, I love to see that Barbie beat Oppenheimer, Wicked beat Gladiator. Like,
Yes.
This is what I love to see. As much as I love all of the films I just mentioned, I love to see the girlies win.
Yes, we love to see pink be the number one
take
color.
This is my thing, is most, like, women, we consume, the girls and the gays consume all the media.
Yes.
We're, like, the number one consumers. But people don't want to pander to us because they're like, that's embarrassing. It's not respected art if you make it for the girls and the gays. But you know what? Yes, it is. We've proved time and time again in the past couple of years that it is. And we need to do it more.
Is Wicked an ancient world film?
Well, in a sense it is, because we have a tyrant at the top of it all.
Named Jeff Goldblum.
And yes, and we have our gladiator, Elphaba, who is rising to the top to try to take him down. And that's just the basic story of the Roman Empire, is the greed and the gluttony, the pride goeth before the fall.
It's all the 7 deadly sins,
Yeah.
including my lust for the costumes.
Anyway.
It's kind of like
Another-
Spartacus, too, because she ends up failing.
True. But also, yeah, but she kind of does, like, scare the wizard out of the whole world, so...
Not That's facts.
Who's gonna
Even
rule
after she was dead?
the wizard is gone?
I don't know. Glinda. She got what she wanted.
I think the Glinda's such an interesting character too. Like,
She was
women
kinda,
have multitudes.
Yes.
She, I think, is good at heart, but she is so, like, she's very Slytherin to me. She's so ambitious that it gets in her way of being a good person sometimes.
She's like, it's kind of like when it suits her.
Yeah.
Like, it feels good when I'm being a good person, being a friend, but then when I get the opportunity, like, I'm gonna take it.
Yeah. So I think she's a really interesting character. I really liked her.
Yeah.
And Elphaba, obviously, we were all rooting for you.
It's the classic. I mean, it was a very satisfying conclusion. It felt like Black Swan, you know? It's like, you know what? Yeah, screw you. I am evil, and you better be afraid of me.
Make me your villain.
Yes. I love stories like that. I love female rage. I love just being like, you know what? Screw all of you. I am going to be the villain, and I'm going to murder you.
If this is what it means to be good, I don't want to be good.
Yep. I love it. Obviously not in real life. I don't condone murder and torture and all that, but in the fantasy world,
But did
I
she murder or
do.
torture anyone?
Well, she tries to murder a dog in
Who
Wizard of
knows?
Oz.
They might have been telling the wrong story. It's propaganda. The Wizard
That's
of Oz
true.
is propaganda.
That's true. It's like Maleficent,
Yeah, exactly.
which
And
is
I
really
love.
fun.
Anyway, I'm very excited for part 2. I
too.
think that knowing what happens in part 2, I think some of the foreshadowing that they did was really fun. And that's all I'll say because Emily doesn't know what happens.
Yeah, I have to say, like, I have no idea what's going to happen. The guy, the love interest who comes to school, I thought he was really fun.
Jonathan Bailey is also a national treasure. I love Jonathan Bailey.
What else does he do?
He does. He's in Bridgerton.
Okay.
Everyone loves him in Bridgerton. He's been in other musical stuff, but I love him.
He was really good, and it's so funny. This is so difficult to do, because he's playing like he knows he's good looking and he's gonna try to get all the ladies, but I never was annoyed or hated him. I was kind of like, oh, but he's like, he has that charisma.
And sometimes we do just need to dance through life. I don't want to think about school.
Yeah.
I don't want to use my brain.
And especially towards the end where you're seeing a little bit more of what's actually beyond his little pretty boy facade. I'm like, ooh, like, I don't know what's going to happen with him. We see him riding off. I'm assuming he's going to try to find Elphaba. And I'm like, okay, well, obviously, like, I mean, he's not in Wizard of Oz that I know of, unless he is the Tin Man or the Scarecrow, or he's one of the guards, or I'm assuming it's going to be something like that, but I don't know, and that's what makes me excited. I'm like, ooh, I want to see what happens.
Yes. Yeah.
It was.
I can't say anything.
I know. Don't tell. I need to somehow avoid spoilers in the next year.
Don't read any of the comments that we possibly get.
Don't tell me, please. I mean, I'm thinking one way, but I don't want to say it because I don't want to see your face.
Oh, yeah, don't say it. Don't make any predictions.
Yeah. So I didn't think that I was going to be so this into it. Like this, like, oh, I want to see what happens next.
Yep. I'm excited for part 2. I'm very excited for part 2. And I heard they're adding, like, original songs to sort of pad it out a little bit.
Oh.
I hope that they're good. We'll see.
Will we get another Wild Uncharted Waters?
Will we? That is the question.
Another, Forevermore.
Make it
please,
romantic,
I want the guy to have a pining romantic love song,
yes.
please.
But
please.
also, I ship Glinda and Elphaba.
Yeah, I ship all three of them, honestly.
Yeah, they would be a great throuple. Agreed.
So, yeah, do like a
throuple love song.
Yeah. Oh, and it could be like that song from Camp Rock 2. Like fire and rain. Fire and rain.
Oh,
except with the three of them.
Oh my gosh. Wait. Please call us, the Wicked composers. Please call us. Well, they've already finished it. I think they're just like in post-production right now.
Oh. Well, anywho.
This marketing campaign has also been just a whirlwind.
Did y'all see our bucket? We got the bucket. I posted it on Instagram.
Yeah, but also all of the memes that have come out of the press tour. Not to mention all the drama behind the scenes, which I won't because I feel like it's not worth.
Yeah,
it's not. It doesn't have anything to do with it.
And that was another thing.
Everyone just shut up.
Yeah, that was starting to get on my nerves.
Why
it felt
why are we making rumored infidelity like equivalent to murder online? And why are we only blaming the woman? That's all I'm gonna say.
It felt like they were trying to be like, "Don't worry, darling."
I don't know.
Like, please stop.
I don't think they were trying to. I don't think they meant for any of that to happen.
I don't know.
But anyway.
And then the poster drama, of course.
The poster drama was funny.
That just was like, what is going on?
That was really funny.
What is going on?
It degrades us. It degrades me.
Okay. Okay.
And then, of course, the holding space for the lyrics of Defying Gravity. That
don't know what that means.
That one really gets me. I love they've talked about that. Have you seen that they've talked about that after the fact? And Ariana Grande was like, I had no idea what she meant.
Okay. Well,
I think they were just trying to roll with it. I think the funniest part is how Ariana grabs Cynthia Erivo's finger and just kind of holds it. That part is really funny. And then, well, I don't know how many people are doing it, but I'm in queer media. It's so funny.
Okay.
That's one of the funniest memes to come out of all this. And just the fact that they're crying constantly in the press tour. I can't blame them. I'd be crying too, because this is like a big deal.
Do you know how much? I mean, they've got generational wealth now. Are you kidding me?
Yes. Well, Ariana Grande already.
That's true.
I'll say it was an event. Much like Barbie, it was an event and you had to be there. And the girls who get it, and the girls who don't. And I feel sorry for you. And
it's fun.
There you have it.
It's very fun.
What else have we been watching, Emily?
Well, I watched The Count of Monte Cristo 2024 French film.
Ooh.
Let me tell you. I still like the 2002 one better, but this came very, very close. I was like, wow. I'm trying to figure out the book. Because I've seen so many adaptations now that I'm like...
What is the book actually?
Yeah. I think I kind of know, but I'm not sure. But this movie seemed like it took elements from the 2002 movie. They took elements from both and combined in, like, the best way. Everything that, like, kind of irked me or didn't sit well with me from the book, they took it and changed it in a way that I was like, that is perfect. I was so... excited about all the things they did. And again, maybe this is how the book is and everything else was just wrong. I have no idea. But it seemed like they were kind of doing both, which I really loved. I know people who are like purist of the book, they don't like that 2002 movie. Can't relate.
I love that movie.
Oh, it's probably one of my favorite movies, like, ever.
The realization that just came over you.
I think about that sometimes. And like The Mask of Zorro. I'm like,
those are great.
Why don't I watch those more?
They're in the same like ballpark of the same like vibes, and I love them so much.
French stories, Spanish stories. Oh,
so good.
I mean, I love Annette and The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, so.
Oh, that's right. Those are in your top.
Yeah, it was amazing. The lead actor, I'm not going to try to pronounce any of the actors' names and sound so American.
Stupid and American.
The lead guy was great. It's a role that you have to do so many things. You have to start with like the young and naive, and then be like depressed and abused and half dead, and then be like super villain. And it has to be believable every step. And he was great. I loved it.
I really want to watch this.
Oh, you gotta watch it. The sets, the costumes, the production. Oh.
Another great one.
Oh, amazing.
You said it's like 3 hours?
It is. And I was like, okay. It literally went by so fast. Scenes were moving along. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Like the first half especially, I'm like, this is going so fast. What is the rest of this movie gonna be? But, the way they did it. Because they build up, the revenge part is so intricate.
Yeah,
the way he
I
does
feel
it.
like that's more like the book.
Yes.
Because I remember, I have not read the book, but I've read literally like Spark Notes version of the book. And I remember being like, oh, cool.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. It kind of like, I'm not happy the way the book allegedly does the relationship with him and Mercedes when he returns. And this one, like, it wasn't like the ending I prefer where it's just like everything's great. But it's like, I'm happy with the way they did it because it wasn't just like, all right,
forget about Mercedes.
It was like, yes. The pining and the tension's like, oh, yes. And the ending was more open-ended. So it wasn't like, all right, they're done. But it also wasn't like, they're together now. It's just kind of like, they're in different places, but who knows what could happen. Like, I like that. If you're not going to have them together, then at least have that. But it's definitely going to be on my top 10 of the year. It was amazing.
Oh, good. I really need to watch this before the end of the year.
I know. I've been dying to get another good version of this story. They need to make the musical a movie.
I know. I
swear
love
to
the
God.
musical.
That's
we
the
have
next step.
a new Sam Claflin adaptation coming out in December 11th. I don't know what to expect with that one.
I'm very curious.
A lot of people are saying, like, he's supposed to be 19, I think, at the beginning. And they're like, Sam Claflin can't pass for 19 no more.
Yeah. And I mean, it was the same with the guy in this one.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't really care about that.
But you can still pull it off. And I don't think Jim Caviezel in the 2002 movie was...
No. I wouldn't say 19, no.
You just have to look...
He does go through quite a physical transformation. Once he gets to the end, he looks completely different.
He does. And that's one of the best parts of that movie.
Yeah.
And it was the same with this one, I thought.
Good.
And they do kind of like... It's so funny, because with his whole revenge, it feels like he's putting together a theater group in a way.
Yes! It's so camp in that way.
Yes.
I so appreciate Count of Monte Cristo for that.
And he straight up puts on, like, face prosthetics.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
So funny.
I love that.
Like, he turns his house into, like, a theater house, and he gathers all these people, and he trains them on how to
That's
talk
so stat-coded.
It's amazing. It's so good. I was so happy. Yes. We're huge Count of Monte Cristo fans.
I love
the movie and the musical anyway.
I love it a lot.
And I don't know, now this series is like, it has a lot to live up to now. So
I bet it won't, because it's American.
I'm trying to be hopeful because I think Sam Claflin is a great choice.
Mm-hmm. He's a great actor.
And he can do that. He can do the naive and young and also the evil suave. So,
yes.
Looking forward to it.
We watched Whiplash last night. Rewatched. That's got to be in my top 10 movies of all time. I freaking love that movie.
It's definitely movie. My tempo.
It's my tempo for sure. It's a horror movie.
It's a psychological break of
it should be categorized as a horror movie. That ending, terrifying. That ending is terrifying to me.
Yes. My worst fear. And I'm not even a musician.
I know. Well, just as a perfectionist myself, and someone who tends to very much put a lot of pressure on themselves, it's a horror movie.
And you watched it very young.
I did.
And I fear that you took it not the way you should have. No. I fear you took it as a guide on how to get through college.
Oh no, oh god. I hope not. Anyway.
It's a great film.
A great movie, 10 out of 10. 10 across the board. I love Miles Teller. Mm-hmm. I also watched this miniseries called Lambs of God that was insane. It has, you guessed it, Lestat, the guy who plays Lestat from Interview with a Vampire in it. And it's basically about him. He's a priest. He goes to this abandoned island that has like a weird monastery on it. And he's trying to examine it to put it on the market because the church wants to sell it and turn it into a hotel. And there's these 3 ladies who have been living there forever, just in isolation. And they're like, no, we don't want you to sell our land. And they basically capture him and kind of torture him for a while. And it's a crazy show. And it was very good. I don't know if I love the way it ended, but it was very good. And yeah, you should watch it, everyone.
That sounds almost like Dracula in a way.
It is! Oh my god! I didn't even think about that. It's supposed to be, throughout the series, each of the women like tells little stories, and it's about them, but it's like veiled as a fairy tale story. So they have like Snow White, Beauty and the Beast, stuff like that. And so I feel like the whole thing was supposed to be a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but like a horror version of it, and gender swapped, obviously.
And with 3
With 3 women, but he only...
With the 3 brides of Dracula instead
God.
of...
Wow. It was really good. Again, not sure I love the way it ended in terms of, like... I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything.
Is it just a one and done, or...
It was just a mini series.
Okay.
It's an adaptation of a book, which I now kind of want to read. It came out in 2019.
Oh.
But yeah, it was really good. And you could see the beginnings of Lestat, I would say, in his performance.
Our next episode is our last one, I think. I keep
It
forgetting to bring
It
this up.
is. What are we doing?
I think it's talking about our anticipated films for 2025.
I have a lot of TV shows.
TV
that's the same
shows.
thing I said last year.
Oh, dang it.
February
I'm
is
gonna
going to
Google
be crazy for me. There's 3 TV shows that are coming out that I really want to watch. Like, all within a couple weeks of each other.
And we've got Hard Eyes and Cleaner.
Wow.
February stacking up.
Jeez.
Yeah, anticipated 2025 movies. Our next episode, our final episode of season 2, before Kayla is off to be Welsh.
I'm going to become Welsh.
And hopefully we will have a season 3.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. During our break, we're going to try to figure out how to do this.
Never fear, folks. You will not have to be without us long.
No, I know. I
guarantee.
know that you just will love it when we grace your screens and your ears.
Until we speak again,
Yes.
make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok so you can keep up with when our new episodes drop and what's going on. And subscribe to us on YouTube or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And that's all for this episode.
I will catch you on the flick side.